This podcast is all about getting divorced without losing your mind, where Corey Shapiro, a seasoned New York City divorce attorney, shares valuable insights from his book, Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind. He'll teach you how to be more creative and less reactive in your divorce. He also dives into discussions with experts and thought leaders on navigating divorce intelligently and calmly.
Welcome to Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind, the book and podcast that helps you learn to be more creative and less reactive in your divorce. I am your host, Corey Shapiro. Today's episode, we are dealing with the big E, not the big easy. That's not this podcast, although it might be nice to be in the big easy, which I think is New Orleans. No, we're dealing with the big E, which is the emotion budget, which is such a complicated budget item because we go from 0 to $1 billion in intensity so quickly. And it's really hard to come back from that. And it's really hard to be composed when we're so stressed. But that's how things get out of control with high emotions. So let's buckle up. Let's get in a place where we can just listen for a few moments and try to really understand this emotion budget. Because if we can get a little, even just 1% better handle on the emotion budget, I'm going to submit to you it pays off at least 10, maybe even 100 times. But before we get into it, let's start with our quote. It's from Dr. Laura Schlesinger. It goes like this: "Don't spend too much time beating on a wall, hoping it will transform into a door." I think about that when people want a quick divorce, but they don't agree on things. And I have to tell you, divorces can be long. I mean, it could be long. I don't know how long I can go for this, but I mean, I can have this edited and just say divorces could go long time. I'm trying to really show you that the emotion can really correlate into a long divorce. Okay, I think I made my point that if the emotion budget is high, you're going to have a long divorce. All right, let's get into it. First off, what is the emotion budget? Well, first of all, what your attorney might not tell you if you have one, and I don't think it's really that well known, is there's a mind-body connection. There's a mind-body connection. And if your thoughts are just negative, it could really integrate into your body and negatively impact it. Maybe with an ulcer, maybe something worse. And just think of this. If you're giving right now and you have, you're living a good life, you're happy, and you give 100% of your life, let's say 50% of your life maybe is to your work, maybe 25% to your spouse, maybe 25% to your kids. I mean, we can figure all this out. That's your main focus in your mind, right? But if you have a divorce, you might be now thinking 50% about your divorce, and you got to shove in that other 3 items or 4 items of what you're thinking about. And it makes things hard. It negatively impacts it. So I want to give you a new perspective, and that's what this podcast is about, and that's what this episode's about. And let's start this off. The first concept is I want you to manage expectations. Here's the bad news. You don't really have that much control over the process. If you guys disagree, you're going to have a judge, and the judge is going to make a decision. And that decision's out of your hands. And that's why so many people settle. There's a risk of uncertainty. So what can you control? Just your behavior. So we're going to have to be deaf. We're going to have to ignore these attempts by the other side and even by our own thinking that's going to cause us to act out. Because if we act out, we may do things that the court may disprove of. And then years later, when they have to make a decision, they might remember those things and go the other way on these closer calls. So I want you to focus on the controllable factors. That's the second big point. Controllable factors. And well, if we can't control what the judge is going to decide. What can we control? And if we can't control your spouse's, positioning, why are they being so irrational, unreasonable, and difficult? We can't control that. What we can control is our responses. We can control our preparation in difficult divorces. We can control how we react under pressure, which may just be going to the balcony, maybe just taking a pause. I can't deal with this. But it's not engaging. It's not fighting. It's not escalating. So that's really the deal. The other concept I want you to think about is your divorce goals. And I really want you to focus on them. And this is about your vision. This is about your values. And let's do a little exercise here. Okay. Maybe if you're not driving and you're in a safer space, why don't we just settle in right now for a little thought exercise, a little mind exercise. Let's just close our eyes if we can, or come back to this when you have time. But just close your eyes when you can. Yeah, I even said you close your eyes. Who's not listening? I mean, let's just get into that space. Take a break or come back to this. And let's forward our thinking into the future. Right? Forward your thinking into the future. And let's pretend we have a time machine. I'm going to ask you some questions to help you guide you through this exercise. So where are you going to be, let's say, in 5 years? Where are you going to be in 5 years? And really think about that time. And try to make it real, like you're watching a movie. And where are you living? Who are you living with? How is your life different? Really get that image in your mind and that feeling, through your body. When you have that image, let's even extend it a little further and think about our life in 10 years and think about those questions again. How do we want our life to be in 10 years? Where are we living? What are we thinking about? Who are we spending time with? What are we doing for a living? Are we traveling? What's our friendship or community like? Why do you think about all of it? And I want you to set it up as your vision. This is what you want. And let yourself go. Give yourself the permission to invest in what you want. Because if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it. All right. And now here's the big question. And if you need to pause this and come back to it and journal it, revise it. You can do this quarterly. You can do this monthly. You can do this yearly. I like to do it quarterly. But now I want you to make a list of the things you need to do to make, happen to achieve that vision. And that's vision casting right there. And that's what I want you to think about in your divorce. All right, let's move up into another concept, this idea of not being perfect. You're going to lose a lot of your positions. You're not going to get everything you want. If you get everything you want in your divorce, either the other side did something really bad or they maybe just had a bad lawyer. But generally, they're going to want some things too that you don't want to give them. And that exchange of value, that compromise, is how we make agreements, right? The great saying that I heard at a negotiation seminar I went to is, what do you want? Because unless I give you what you want, you're not going to give me what I want. Now, we might not give them their stated position. What we're trying to hear is their need, and we're trying to meet their need in a way that works. So I want you to just think about that. We're not gonna win all the points. And it's okay giving the other side some points as long as we win what's important to us. And it might be just 2 or 3 things that are super important to us and we're flexible on the rest. I've been watching this documentary on Federer. I don't know if you saw it on Amazon. It's the last 12 days before he retired. He played a little longer than he should have, probably until he was 41, because he had some surgery. Such a graceful, elegant player, and also elegant off the court. But he gave a great stat. One of the best tennis players ever. He said he won 80% of the matches he played. 80%. That is fantastic. If I go on the court 10 times, I win 8 out of those 10 times. Amazing. But he only won 54% of the points. That's it. Just a little bit better. And what a difference. An icon. And that's what I want you to think of. You just have to be a little bit better. It doesn't have to win 100% of the points. And you could really achieve your goals, your main goals. All right. Last concept for this episode is I want you to adopt a realistic attitude. A realistic attitude. We know this in a different context, don't we? We know this when we go on vacation and when we plan it. Do we expect anything but beautiful weather? Let's say we're planning a cruise. Aren't we just like, oh, this is going to be smooth sailing. This is going to be great ports. There's going to be, great weather, great food, great times, great people I meet. And that's your expectation. Then you book that cruise, you pay all that money, and then you wait. And if you're like me, you do it in advance, so you have something to look forward to. And maybe 6 months or a year later, your cruise finally comes. And maybe, the next door guests get COVID and you hear them coughing. Maybe when you first go to your first port, you didn't realize that you are in this really poor third world country, which is just so sad, because they just need so much financial help and you really want to help them, but how? And you're supposed to be relaxing on this vacation. And now you have these problems. And maybe, a ship day at sea, it's so rocky and you can't even enjoy any of the drinking or the meals. Maybe you were looking forward to the entertainment and the entertainment couldn't perform because it was so rocky. Anything can happen on a cruise ship and anything can happen in a divorce. So adopt this realistic attitude and, hope for the best, but prepare for some problems. It will make your life much easier. All right. Next week's episode on this podcast is going to be about the money budget. That's the highlight. That's what people think about when they think about the budget. But I wanted to start off with the biggest ticket item of the budget is the emotion. So I want to thank you for tuning in. I want you to thank you for doing the hard work, working on your divorce, not just in it. Working on your divorce might make you just even 1% more creative, 1% less reactive each time you listen to these concepts, each time you tune into us. And over time, it's going to compound. It's like an investment. It's going to compound. And you're going to be a different person in just a short period of time. Could be a few months, a year. It's going to be night and day. And remember, you're not alone here. At least you have me. You have my book, my podcast, the resources. So you too can get a divorce without losing your mind.
Thank you for tuning in to the Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind podcast. We would love to hear your feedback. Send Corey an email to feedback@gettingdivorced.org. And if you've read his book, please consider leaving an Amazon review. This podcast offers general information only. It cannot replace legal advice. If you need tailored advice, contact an attorney licensed to practice in your area.